I should probably start this off with a complete contradiction. I love cozy games. I've been a consumer of cozy games since way back before there was a wholesome direct dedicated to them. I love nothing more than setting aside a AAA open world game that I've been obliged to review to play a little game about farming, or being a frog detective, or roasting marshmallows as the solar system implodes around me. They've been the source of so much joy for me over the years, so much so that I have a Junimo tattooed on my arm, for crying out loud. So before we get into all this, know that I am a cozy gaming fan, but putting my feelings aside as a consumer of these games, cozy games are becoming a bit of a problem. And here's why. So in case you haven't noticed, journalistic integrity in the video game industry is pretty hard to come by. It's why we've seen the rise of independent breakaway media, with prominent Phoenix projects like MinMax from Game Informer and Second Wind from The Escapist gaining a lot of traction. People value authentic and honest content and coverage, something that is becoming harder and harder to find in mainstream gaming media. I know firsthand that plenty of big sites we consume now run on a semi or full-blown AI writer model, and I know that the content they produce is all about volume rather than quantity. It's a system where they burn out contributors and cast them aside like a used napkin, replacing them with a new bum in the seat when they are of no further use. But that's not what I really want to point the finger at today. I want to point the finger at cozy gaming as a genre, and why this niche pocket of gaming is making it so much easier for websites to trick consumers into believing that cute equates to quality. This problem isn't a new thing, but the final straw, and the reason I'm sitting here in a dark room chatting to you, is because of a little game called Spirittea. If you know me, or you listen to the Indie Game Culture podcast, you'll know that I was very excited about this game. I'm a huge Studio Ghibli fan, I love Earthbound, and I'm a sucker for a casual cozy game. It ticked all the boxes, but sadly upon review, the game was extremely underwhelming. The game looked cute as a button, and it had some really interesting ideas, but the game was clunky, unintuitive, slow-paced, unrewarding for players, and for lack of a better way to put it, just boring. So imagine my face when I found out this game managed to earn an aggregate score of 76% on Metacritic. I was disappointed, but honestly, I wasn't shocked. I even saw some publications like VG247 and Screen Rant, before they amended it, gave the game a perfect 10 out of 10. Now granted, no one goes to Screen Rant for their game reviews. If I want to find out ChatGPT's 10 favourite things about the Barbie movie, that's where I'll go, but not for game reviews. But here's the thing, that review was far outranking level-headed and well thought out reviews from Destructoid, for example, and indeed ourselves, if I can be a little bit conceited for a second. Meaning on launch day, that's the article that most people saw. They took it at face value, bought the game, and the game undoubtedly disappointed them like it did myself. What I'm saying here is that we're being sold marketing. If a game looks cute and cozy, it's easier to sell, and when you discover that it's all style over substance, you end up feeling cheated, and that's not a mistake, it's a pattern. I can't exactly pinpoint when this all began, but I sure can pinpoint a high-profile instance that helps support the point. Cast your mind back to the 2022 Game of the Year Awards and look specifically at the indie category. In there, we had the following nominees: Kena Bridge of Spirits, Sifu, Tunic, Cult of the Lamb, and Neon White. In there, we have some of the most groundbreaking games of the year. A game that reimagined what an FPS platformer could be, a game that gave us a wonderful modern take on the beat-em up, and a game that practically one-upped Legend of Zelda in terms of top-down RPG adventure design. Yet of all those, Kena Bridge of Spirits, a reasonably well implemented platforming adventure game with lackluster Souls combat, wins the day. How does that happen? Well, I can tell you what I think. The Pixar graphics and the rot. Those things were so damn cute that my wife immediately begged me to get a plush toy of one when we were playing the game together. And at that moment, I knew the game would win. Not for the right reasons, but I knew it would win. So, I touched on Spirittea, but I hear you asking, are there any other tangible examples to point to in 2023? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's been a year packed full of cozy casual games, and so many of them have flattered to deceive, providing experiences that just don't stack up to the critical receptions that they have been receiving. And when you read the reviews, it's primarily down to something like the animals were so cute or the game has stickers. It's kind of like when you have a kid and they want to buy a magazine, but they only want it for the free toy pasted on the cover. That's what some of the critical reviews are channeling these days. To point at some clear examples, first we have Mealtime, a game that I personally quite like due to the cute art style and the quirky writing. However, from my critical point of view, as a platformer it's ridiculously clunky and the game is made up of one huge fetch quest, so it's hardly pulling up trees. Yet, that one received a 74 average on Metacritic. It's probably the least offensive example I have, but don't worry, I have more. We then have Fall of Porcupine, a game trying so hard to be a knight in the woods that it should be paying royalties to its developer Infinite Fall. It's a game that again is cute as a button, but arguably is also one of the worst paced games I've ever played. It has a narrative that never threatens to get interesting in any way, and it's boring as sin. This one earned a 72 average. Then to round off the trio, we have Paleo Pines, one of the many Stardew Valley offshoots vying to dethrone Eric Barone's farming sim. And how, you ask? With cute dinosaurs, slow-paced gameplay, a lack of player rewards throughout, a hollow world with filler NPCs, and a format that feels like a mobile game that has been scaled up to a mid-range console release. This game got a 73 average on Xbox, but more accurately, a 65 average on PC, which is more palatable, but if you're selling me a glorified mobile game, I don't even think it warrants that. This is only a taster menu of what the year offered us in the way of cute games being given too much goodwill, and as much as I love cozy games, it's dragging down the critical review process of gaming and makes us easy targets as consumers for corporate publishers. Okay, so wait a minute, why is this such a big problem then? If you don't do your research, you set yourself up for a fall. That's always been the case. Why don't we just let cozy gamers slip up from time to time? Well, because if we do that, publishers will smell blood. Do you know how easy it is to think of a cool concept and pull together a vertical slice for a game, especially if you have a good studio to call upon? A studio could drum up a 5-minute slice of a game where you play as a little raccoon who lives in a forest and runs their own logging mill, or a koala who manages their own industrial eucalyptus factory. Random thoughts from my mind mere seconds ago. But that goodwill that it earns in that instance doesn't mean it's going to be a good game. It's literally just marketing aimed at cozy gamers who swoon at the sight of an anthropomorphic protagonist. It's game development that feels very in line with creating episodes for a sitcom that's in its 10th season.
Hi.
The characters have become caricatures of themselves, the humour always relies on the lowest common denominator, and everyone watching is doing so for comfort, not because there's any substance. Take Joey from Friends, for example.
How you doing?
He began as somewhat of an airhead actor character, sure.
Omnipotent. You are?
But he had layers beyond that. But by the end of the series, his character was borderline mentally challenged and dined out on catchphrases to get from one episode to the next. That is what could happen to cozy gaming as a niche if critics don't actually do their job and critique. The games will become artificial formulas for cute games brainstormed in conference rooms, and we'll only have ourselves to blame. I can hear the indie dev fanatics in the back pleading that the developer always has the best interests of the game at heart, and it may surprise you to hear that I think that way as well. Aside from a few weird anomalies, indie developers are led by passion and want their game to reflect their vision, sometimes to the detriment of sales and popularity. However, publishers do not think that way, and money talks. Just recently, we heard the petty cries of no more robots as they got in hot water for claiming that no creators were playing Spirittea, a game that they published, even though they were, and the game already had recouped its costs. Do you know why that was? Not because they felt bad for developer Dan Beckerton not getting his flowers, not because he felt that the game was being unfairly ignored, it was because the publisher had looked at the cute and cozy nature of the game, the striking art style, and the comparisons to Ghibli films and Stardew Valley, and thought they had an absolute nailed on hit. so they were bitter and they backed the wrong horse. And that's it, there's nothing else to it. It's evidence that publishers see this as an equation to solve. Cute animal plus pixel graphics plus fishing minigame equals profit. And the only reason we're hearing about it now is because on this rare occasion, it didn't go quite as planned. Publishers are very keen to crack the cozy casual market, and that was also evidenced by Nexon's ploy to keep their involvement in Dave the Diver as hushed as they possibly could, to find runaway success as a staggeringly polished indie game. I do feel that yes, Dave the Diver does warrant that tag, as it was made by a small debut studio, albeit with the funding of Nexon behind them, but it goes to show that there is a lot of smoke and mirrors in play. So what was the point of this big rant? Do we all as a collective stop buying wholesome games unless we can verify and validate their quality and merit? No, that should not be the job of the consumer. You should be able to look at a cute game, look at a review, and trust that you have done everything that you can on your end. Honestly, this isn't really for 99% of the people who will stumble across it. This is primarily a jab at those performing reviews for video games today. You need to separate yourself from the cozy vibes, as they can add some points on the board for an otherwise lukewarm game, but they should never be the pillar upon which your entire positive review leans on. I do believe that indies as a whole should be graded on a curve when compared to AAA games, but what I don't understand is why there is this separate curve being made for these games, with the saturation dialed up to the max, loads of mushrooms, and cute animals with huge eyes. So this is a message to all of you critics like myself: don't be suckered in. Take a step back, search for the substance, and score appropriately. So there you have it, guys. That's my take on if cozy games are becoming a problem. What do you think about all of this? Do you think cozy games are becoming a problem? Do you think that we are easier to market to as cozy gamers? Or do you think that I'm completely off base and we should just keep buying those cute and colourful games? There's no wrong answers, and I want to hear every single comment, so be sure to leave one down below. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this, and until next time, I've been Cal, and I'll see you next time.